The Life and Times of Conway Twitty, next on TNN.
Conway Twitty can rightfully claim to be the most successful entertainer of all time. No one in the history of popular music has had more #1 hits. No one. Not Elvis, not the Beatles, not Michael Jackson. But to just look at the statistics of the man called the Heartland Heartthrob does a great disservice to Conway. His phenomenal record sales do not explain the man, his music, or his enormous mass appeal.
Hello, darling. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. You're just as lovely as you used to be.
Conway just showed the people he could do anything he wanted to. He could sing country, he could sing rock. Maybe he can sing opera, if he'd wanted to.
Just to know it means so much to me.
Well, everybody has to have their own little identity, and I think Conway's, he had that. It gave him a certain little magic, and he knew how to sell a song in a very great way. And this got better as time went on.
What I'm trying to say is I love you and I miss you. I'm so sorry that I did you wrong.
Conway was the consummate country entertainer. I remember seeing him on television years ago before I ever came to Nashville and thinking, this guy has got it all. He's got the looks, he's got the voice, he's got the moves, he's got the whole thing.
And if you should ever find it in your heart to forgive me, come back, darling.
Conway Twitty's career was truly remarkable. Born of humble origins, this son of the South rose to the top of the entertainment world and managed to stay on top through 5 decades.
I can't think of many entertainers in the world that have ever done that before. And I remember I asked him about it one time. And he was going through one of his periodic style shifts. He did that all through his career. And I said to him what an interesting thing it was. It was like a snake shedding its skin and becoming a new body every time. And he said, the only thing in life that's constant is change. You change or you die. So you had this guy who was a rockabilly star, who was a teen idol, who made the shift into honky-tonk music, then adopted a blue-eyed soul thing, then became like a gruff-voiced gospel shouter. He did all of that stuff really, really well, as only somebody from the Deep South can really do it.
A large part of Conway's longevity can be attributed to his uncanny ability to time after time reinvent his sound. But this gift, the capacity to change, may have in some measure been an accident of birth. The man who would one day be known as Conway Twitty was born Harold Lloyd Jenkins in Friars Point, Mississippi on September 1st, 1933. He was the first of 3 children of Floyd and Velma Jenkins. Like most of the people who lived along this impoverished Mississippi levee, the Jenkins were poor, and the Great Depression had only made things worse.
They had a good life, but it was hard. It was really tough. They told stories about for Christmas they would get something like a chocolate pie, and that was a big deal to them because they were so poor and they really had to make money stretch and count. It had to go for necessities rather than luxury items.
But for young Harold, the appreciation of music, all kinds of music, was probably the greatest gift he ever received. It was almost as natural to him as breathing.
Conway's dad was a riverboat pilot, and a lot of that river music is levee blues, and in some cases, showboats coming up. And still in those days, it was kind of the dying era of the showboat. So he would have heard Dixieland and the blues growing up.
His grandmother cooked for a man that he referred to as Paul Fuller. And they lived at his boarding house, and Paul Fuller gave him his first guitar when he was just 4 years old.
The only music I heard back then was country music, and that was on Saturday night. And everybody got together at my grandmother's house, and we listened to the Grand Ole Opry. I didn't know that there was another radio station in the world.
Conway attributed part of his love for music to Paul Fuller. He said Paul Fuller realized how much the Grand Ole Opry touched him and told him, one day, if you don't sing too high and ruin your vocal cords, then you'll be able to sing on the Grand Ole Opry.
The family lived within close proximity to both a white Pentecostal church and a black holiness church. That music has so much soul in it, and Conway would sit outside the black church and listen to the music coming out of there.
So he had the Grand Ole Opry, he had the blues, and he had the gospel music as a foundation.
When Harold was 10, the Jenkins family moved from Friars Point to Helena, Arkansas. The young boy grieved for the life he left behind in the Delta, but music helped to ease his pain and make his new life fuller. By the time he was 10 years old, Harold Jenkins had written his first song, and by age 12, Harold had formed his own band. They were known as the Phillips County Ramblers.
I say that I don't worry, and our parting brought no pain. I say that I'd be happy if we never meet again.
The group performed on KFFA, a local radio station in Helena, Arkansas. This recording was made in the station studio in 1946.
When music is like that for you, it's something that you don't just choose, it's something you have to do in a way. It just kind of bubbles outside of you.
As a youngster, Harold was shy, but popular. While in his teens, he had begun preaching, but became disillusioned and gave it up. And while he loved music, back then Harold believed his true calling was athletics, particularly baseball. While practicing one day, Harold met another young man who would become his lifelong friend, Hugh Carden. And as Hugh recalls, being Harold's teenage buddy was a distinct advantage.
We would work a deal to where I'd get my car, and he could get the date so easy, but he'd make a deal to get the date for me with his girlfriend's girlfriend. So therefore, I would have a date, and he would have a date. And most of the time, we went on the levee there by the Mississippi River and get out, and he'd sit down and start playing the guitar, and I'd sit over there and be trying to make out, you know. I said, that Harold Jenkins, he's kind of crazy. He got a problem in him playing that guitar. He ought to be flirting with his girl. Well, needless to say, I should have been playing the guitar myself, too.
In high school, Harold had a steady girlfriend. When it ended, he was brokenhearted. Soon after, he met another young lady named Ellen. He married Ellen when they discovered she was pregnant.
He lived with Mama and Papa, my grandparents, and so did she after they got married and I came along. They loved each other, but the main thing, they were just awful young to be married and have a child.
Within a year, the couple agreed the marriage was a mistake and divorced. Harold's mother and father raised Michael. Harold headed back to Chicago, where he had gotten a job after graduating from high school. Having been scouted by the Philadelphia Phillies, he hoped this situation was only temporary and he would soon be playing professional baseball. But his life was about to change dramatically.
The Life and Times of Conway Twitty returns in a moment on TNN. News on TNN.